Good morning, Greg with Butter Suspension. You know, mullets are all the rage, both hairstyle and wheel size. And today we are going to swap some lowers for a guy. Normally people have like a 29-inch wheel bike, front and rear, and they want to go mullet, so they put a 27 on the back. This guy's going the other direction. He has 27.5 wheels, front and rear, and he wants to try 29 up front. So the cool thing is with the Zeb, the only difference between 29 and 27.5 is the length of the lowers. So we're going to swap his fork lowers. Come along. So this requires tools. Everything requires tools. 2.5 millimeter to get the rebound knob off. That also gets the hose guide off. 5 millimeter Allen to get the foot bolts off. A little plastic mallet to smack the foot bolts. And then another Allen wrench to pull the axle off. I'm going to do this job today with the fork on the bike. There's no reason to take the fork off if you're just going to do lowers. It'll also help to have a garbage can to catch oil, or some type of something to catch oil. And then when we put it all back together, you will need 0W30 lower leg bath oil. Let's get to it. Let's go. Pull off the wheel. How tight did this guy get it on? Oh yeah! Wheel comes out, set that aside. On the Zeb, this piece is aluminum, so it doesn't wrap around. Normally I leave these on, but since this all comes away, I take it off. And since we're swapping lowers, I'm also going to swap over his fender. So we'll get rid of his zippers. Oh, in the face. And I do this over a garbage can because that way I don't have to sweep. Because there will always be dirt here. Lots and lots of dirt. This is my trick. I set the fender on the tire. That way I don't put it all back together and leave the fender on my bench and send them off without their fender. Oh, where did it go? Where did it go? Oh, I was gonna use my old rubber band trick, but I guess I used all my rubber bands. We'll get an O-ring. Looks like it's actually a good time to change these out anyway. Bro's been hitting hard. Oh. My rubber bands are gone. Okay. Did this in another video, but rubber band up and over. Now the hardware's not going anywhere. And it was how it was on the bike. Not that that's the right answer, but we at least know that it's all there. And I'll wrap this around. Then that's out of the way. This guy's got water in his frame. So I set this parallel to the ground. That way all the oil isn't going to drop out until I am ready for it to drop out. Take my 2.5. Actually, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So it's 11. The reason why I do that is in case this gets messed up, I can put it back to 11.
Turn it to 11.
That's right. And because I have a brain full of crap, I also write it down. Okay. These are both 5mm. You just want to break them loose and unspread them about 3 threads each. Right. Plastic mallet. And at that point, oh, not quite, they're still tight. Should be able to shove everything in, yeah. Set those aside. These should break loose. Now, there's kind of 2 ways to do this. You can slide these off and then try and catch all the oil, or, granted this helps that I have this big bike stand. Everything's easier with a bike stand. But I will swing this fork away with the garbage can underneath. You can see it drip, drip, drip. Let it do its thing. More drippy, drippy. Cool. All right. Oh. Now let's do a little compare and contrast. The difference between 27 and 29 is where they put the dropouts. So if you compare these two, the overall length of the tubes is the same. You can see the legs themselves are the same, crown, arch, all that stuff. But these dropouts are closer to the arch to fit the 27.5, whereas the 29 is lower. It's pretty smart, really, because then they don't have to change shaft length or damper length or upper length or anything. The only difference between 27.5 and 29 is the lower legs. It's pretty slick. I am not throwing these away. Don't freak out. I'm just keeping them here to let them drain. You guys are out of your minds. Come. So these come with bushings and seals and everything preset, but the foam rings that come in them are kind of bone dry. So I took those out and I pre-soaked them. That way I know that they're full of oil and ready to go.
They look like onion rings.
Yeah, delicious onion rings. So then we'll pop these in. Sorry, I'm totally in the way here. And these just go in a little groove below. Come on, buddy. Come on, buddy. Just kind of push it in there. One down. Beep, beep, beep. Come on. You notice I'm using a pick, but I am also, as usual, always being very careful not to scratch. Cool. Every fork gets a sticker. Bang.
It's official.
Cool. Alright, let's slap these on. So these come also pre-greased from the factory. Keep in mind that a wiper seal internally looks like this, and it sits against your fork upper like this. You only need to lube this part and this part, because that's where it's contacting the upper. If you pack this part with grease, all you're doing is throwing away grease. All this grease that's in here will never see the light of day, and it will never touch the upper legs. So, and the only reason I say that is if you smear tons and tons of grease in there, you're wasting a bunch of grease, and also there's the chance that some of that could work its way out and get all smeary and gross. So you don't really need that much grease. We've got these all cleaned. They're ready to go. You want to be careful to not scratch anything as you're putting these in. Oh, one more point. You may notice that the damper shaft is way longer than this. Hold a little roll. The reason for that, the damper doesn't know what your fork travel is. All it knows is that it can handle whatever air shaft you put in here. So it's basically not position sensitive. So if we move this damper shaft up, there's the 170, 160, 150. It doesn't care. So don't freak out if you go to do this and you're like, oh, my damper's hanging out too long. You compensate for that as soon as you put the lowers on. Basically, you get the lowers on, and then as you push this up, it gets up to meet this side. So totally normal. If you want to come around here real quick. So I kind of try and engage the front edge first, and I'll pull these over. RockShox's foam rings are just barely slightly oversized so that they sit away from these legs. So generally speaking, when I put these on, they always go right on. The Fox 36 foam rings are undercut a little bit, and so you have to pre-stretch them. And even when you pre-stretch them, you have to be really careful because you can chop them as you put the fork on. So I'll slide this on, but I won't go very far. I just want to make sure that I'm engaged, and then I got room to put oil on the bottom. So we'll swing the bike again. This time I'm going to swing it so that these are pointing uphill, because when I fill this with oil, I want to make sure the oil doesn't spill out. All the RockShox forks, for the most part, are 10 cc's in each lower leg. Modern forks. That's like all the newer stuff. There's a lot of old stuff that's 5 or 7 or whatever, but current Pike, Boxer, Zeb, Lyric, they're all 10 cc's, but the Zeb is 20 cc's per leg. So I take my 40 cc's and I go, that one gets 20. And I want to make sure I'm not putting oil into the bottom of the shaft. So I kind of got to fish my way around, otherwise it just makes a mess. Okay, it's 20-inch leg. These are going to get a new crush washer. Come on, buddy. Make sure they're clean. Oh. Okay, see if we can see this. I'm going to slide this up. First thing I'm going to engage is the damper shaft. Or did it go away? Oh, it already engaged. Okay, cool. So you want to make sure you can see the threads. The damper shaft can kind of wiggle around, so you want to make sure that it's lined up. The air spring is a more accurate piece, if you will, when it's pressurized, so it will generally find the center of the leg. So when I do this, I'm pulling the shaft into the lower leg. And then once you've pulled the shaft down, that's when you start to worry about how tight you're doing it. There's a torque setting. We'll put it on the screen, but literally the damper shaft and the air shaft being pulled into the lower legs is what holds this fork together. The bolts are there to pull the fork together, the shaft into the lowers. And then the crush washers are there to keep the bolt from going anywhere. Technically speaking, the bolt is not what keeps this fork together. You don't take them out. You can't ride without them. But there's kind of a reason why they do this, especially when they have two. The idea is that the crush washers keep the bolts from going anywhere, and the bolts keep the shafts from going anywhere, and the shafts pushing into the lower legs keep anything from going anywhere. So it's kind of like almost a 6-time fail-safe. So if you lose both your bolts, which shouldn't happen, your lowers aren't going to just fall off. I mean, you saw that when I took these off, I have to hammer them with a hammer to get the shafts popped out of the lower legs. So overall, it's a pretty robust, safe system. All right, we'll get the rebound knob on. This is a 2.5. Holy smokes, those are tiny little threads. This needs almost no torque. You just need to make sure it stays put. These get stripped out all the time. And then the way this whole thing works, when you thread this bolt into this, it's engaging in this groove right here. So this little bolt engages in there, and it just glides around in there. So you don't need to go super tight, because it's not actually bolting into anything, if that makes sense. You can see how it comes through. So you just leave that right there. Make sure you're engaged. There's a little kind of a spring loadiness to it, so you want to make sure you're pressing on it. And again, it's 2.5, just enough to hold it in place. Make sure it spins. Go full closed. This guy was at 11. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Cool. All right. And then the rest is just basic stuff. Put on the brake, put on the front wheel. I think you know the rest. I hope you know the rest. That's all I got for today. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, as usual. I do read them. I do answer. Unless you put some weird, obnoxious stuff, and then I'll just yeet you. It's fine. Thanks for watching.